Hey, it's been a while. Now that we've had some time to let Netflix's attempt at adapting the greatest animated show of all time sink in, I feel confident in saying that Season 1 is a mixed bag. I am honestly kind of indifferent about it. I didn't think it was amazing, I didn't think it was horrible either, it was just okay. But one of the best elements of this season for me were definitely the fight scenes, which is why today we'll be ranking all of Netflix's Avatar characters based on their combat skills. You know how this goes, if I haven't seen them in combat, they can't be ranked. All avatars are always ranked without the avatar state. Now for the tiers, firstly we have the You Do Nothing tier. The characters that in Season 1 haven't shown any fighting at all. Then we have Novice, Intermediate, Adept, Master and Legendary. Now let's get ranking. So first in the You Do Nothing tier is Gran. I was between a rock and a hard place on where to put Gran. Not because of her waterbending skills, but because of her mastery over the most powerful element of bad exposition. What makes her so powerful is that it doesn't matter where she is, whom she is with, at any time she can just start throwing exposition at you. And all you can do is just stand there, defenseless, waiting for her to shut the f*** up. Her powers are really beyond our understanding, but because of that I simply can't rank her, so she belongs here. Then we have Mei and Ty Lee. Let me just take this opportunity to talk about their inclusion up until now, because it is odd. For some reason the show doesn't really find the time to properly introduce them, so what they do instead is just stand there and do nothing. Granted the casting is great, but man is it awkward whenever Azula is throwing a tantrum and they just kinda stand there aimlessly. I pray the writers do properly introduce them in Season 2 and actually give them something to do by then. I'm also really excited to see Ty Lee chi-block some people, and perhaps in this more mature adaptation we'll also get to see Mei actually hurt some people with her projectiles. Is it weird that I want to see that? Next up is Tao and Abiet. Tao and the Mechanist. I'm a big Community fan and I was really excited to see Danny Pudi's performance as the Mechanist, and I'd say overall he did a great job. However, it is a shame that the Mechanist plot was intertwined with the Jet and Omashu episodes, as it became rather convoluted with way too many things happening at once. It would really have been better if they had spread these plots out a bit more. I think Tao was also portrayed pretty well, and the father-son dynamic between them really worked for me. Nevertheless, they are inventors, not fighters, so they're placed here. Next up is Princess Yue. Regarding the casting, I think the Shyamalan's adaptation's actress was cast a lot better looks-wise, if we leave out the genital haircut. But on the other hand, I think this actor really stands out as one of the better performances in this season. And for the few scenes that she shared with Ian Ousley, I think her and Saka actually have great chemistry. I do think it's hilarious though how they have like one conversation before they start sucking each other's face off. Like that was actually peak comedy. Weirdly enough, Yue is a waterbender here, whereas in the original series she was a non-bender. But I think that change does make sense, seeing how she was touched by the moon spirit and all. Her being a waterbender is not a far stretch. However, the most we see of her waterbending is her making this ice cream dessert. Because remember kids, in the water tribe, women are worth nothing.
No.
So yeah, Yue belongs here. The fifth individual entering the You Do Nothing tier is Shirshu riding June. If you ask me, June is a perfect cast. She plays the role excellently, and I thoroughly enjoyed her speech on why she's perfectly content with the Fire Nation's war, as long as it brings her some coin in the process. It's a pretty interesting angle they added, and I think it really fits with her character. Another thing they added, or well, not added but changed, was her flirting with Iroh. Now, in the original show, everyone loves Iroh, right? But we all agree that there was this one scene where he did some questionable things. In the live action, they switched the roles and made June flirt with Iroh, which to me felt equally weird. Nevertheless, unlike the show where she is this unstoppable force, June doesn't showcase any of her non-bending prowess in this first season. Maybe she'll move up the tier list after we see seasons 2 and 3. But for now, we move on to the novice tier. Next up is unironically one of my favorite characters in this season.
Admiral Joy! Prepare to meet your fate!
Remember how in the animated show Han was this cocky brat who had this rivalry with Sokka? Well, not here. He's the most kind, loving person to ever exist. From the moment he and Sokka meet, he's like, "Tell me about your experience fighting the Fire Nation. I think it could really be of use. Oh, by the way, I was betrothed to Yue, but she broke it off. A choice which I totally respect because I honor all women. Understandably, you like her as she's a princess, literally and figuratively. I wish you and her all the love and happiness in this world." Some people were really upset that Han was this perfect, and while I do get where they're coming from, I mean Han was hilarious in the animated series.
Let me tell you, Saka.
I think making him this flawless makes us like the Northern Water Tribe even more. Besides, Baku already fills that hole of being the annoying as shit Water Tribe person, which I think allows for Han to be such an angel. Ultimately, flawless Han gets to show us his fighting skills in an epic scene, sacrificing himself to cover the retreat of the father of the girl who rejected him. Here, he took out like 3 or 4 guys with his Water Tribe club, which was rather impressive. He did have his crew though, and he was ultimately defeated, perishing in the process. Rest in peace, perfect Han. The second individual gracing the novice tier is our man Saka. Oh, Season 1 Saka, you are so young and naive still. One of the scenes that I thoroughly enjoyed in this adaptation was when Zuko arrived at the entrance of the Southern Water Tribe and Saka steps up. I love how Saka understands immediately that Zuko is one insecure. So instead of trying to fight his entire crew, he challenges him head on, knowing he'll accept if he hurts his ego. I think that really reflects his strategic capabilities, which is awesome. And Saka is a lot less useless in his fight too compared to the animated series. In fact, he's quite proficient at dodging Zuko's quick and powerful attacks, and he even almost got a hit in too, until he flees like a coward, that is. But that's not a shame, because Zuko is weirdly powerful this season. Don't worry, we'll get to him. Besides that, Sokka also displayed great accuracy with his boomerang, and shortly after that he becomes involved in the most steamy fighting dance ever to appear on television with Suki. Having learned from Suki, Sokka now acquired the power of fan. Not gonna lie, that was a pretty slick move, Sokka. They really zeroed in on the whole inventor plot for Sokka, which is fine I guess, but I do hope we still get to see him train with Pian Dao and become a swordsman in Season 3. As for right now, Sokka has a lot to learn before he can save it. The final spot in the novice tier is taken by Chief Aruk. They adapted this character perfectly. In the show, he doesn't do much, nor does he do much here. Netflix was kind enough to give us a little fight scene where we see him easily take out 4 Fire Nation soldiers, until someone shoots his buddy, that is. Then he's like,
"Goodbye to the people who hated on me."
Not much else to say about this guy, just an average Water Tribe chief doing his thing. We move on to the intermediate tier. The first character in the intermediate tier is Jet. Oh Jet, your inclusion in this first season was shaky, to put it lightly. It really isn't the actor's fault, the script just tries to do way too many things at once. For what it's worth though, I think the actor did a great job portraying Jet. Fortunately, we do get to see Jet in some action using his famous hook swords. And they even give us his signature move where he interlocks his swords for extra reach. Here Jet took on like 3 Fire Nation soldiers at once and pretty much won. At first I was kinda bummed out that they didn't give Jet his iconic stick thingy, until he just turns around, looks at Qara and boom. Let's all hope that we see Jet come back in the Ba Sing Se storyline in Season 2, where inevitably he will take a permanent nap. Next up is Kyoshi warrior Suki. Let me just say that Maria Zhang, the actress who played Suki in this adaptation, did a phenomenal job. I think her portrayal of Suki and maybe Ken Leung's Xiao are my favorite in this season. Anyway, in the animated series Season 1, Suki wasn't that powerful. While defending Kyoshi Island from Zuko's invasion, she kinda got her ass kicked. Season 3 Suki, however, now that's a different story. In Season 3, Suki is pretty much a god. Likewise, I feel like in this first season of the adaptation, Suki is not on that level yet. We do see her throwing her fan with precision, and she's tremendously capable using them as weapons in combat. Her combat abilities are clearly on a very different level than, say, Sokka's, for example. Still, I think that in the coming tier list she'll be a lot higher on this list. Moving on to the adapt tier, the first character that we encounter here is Qara. So for Qara, they did an amazing job in adapting the show. In the animated series, Qara goes from this angry, unskilled bender to basically being on par with a Grandmaster in the blink of an eye. In similar fashion, live-action Qara seems to move from struggling to hold a simple ball of water to effortlessly bending a spout that reaches 100 meters into the air. I really wish we would have gotten to see some more training scenes with Master Pakku, where Qara actually learns from a waterbending teacher, rather than having Aang or Jet ramble about some spiritual and emotional gibberish.
Bending is about energy and balance. By feeling the energy around you, and then balance.
Anyhow, Qara definitely improves throughout the series. The Qara we see at the end is quick on her feet and accurate, where initially she was extremely slow and imprecise. Where at first she ran helplessly from Zuko, she ultimately almost caught up to his level of skill in their final duel. Granted, she did not necessarily defeat Zuko, and it was also a full moon, which boosted her power. Throughout the season, she also learned many new moves, even inventing one herself. At first she could only do this simple water ball thing, and now she has the water whip down, the freeze jet move, and this other kind of new signature move where she creates an ice pillar and shoots it at her opponents like an earthbender.
Earthbending style!
Still, it will probably never not be weird for Qara to rival Master Pakku. But hey, at least we get a decent fight. Qara gets a well-deserved spot in the Adapt tier. Just above Qara we find one of the best actors of the entire series, Xiao. Anyone else just loved Ken Leung's performance as Xiao. I really do think he's one of the best elements in the entire first season. Even though Xiao is more of a planner rather than a fighter in this season, we get several fight scenes where he showcases his firebending abilities. Firstly, the invasion of Kyoshi Island is in this iteration not led by Zuko but Xiao. Here we just get a meager fireball out of him though, which is not much to work with. The more notable fight scene is of course the final fight between Zuko and Xiao. Or well, Zuko and Xiao! Here we see Xiao do his signature put your hands together and deflect the fire move, which we also saw him do in the show, like 3 times. In this fight he is actually rather defensive, which he does quite well. He does get outclassed offensively by Zuko both in firebending as well as in their little hand-to-hand brawl. They even incorporated his dishonorable move to strike Zuko while he's not looking, though this time he seems to conjure up some sort of fire whip akin to what we saw Zuko do in the finale of season 2. Generally, Xiao is fairly powerful and skilled, but his loss against Zuko led me to place him in the Adapt tier. Moving on to another Fire Nation general, Uncle Iroh. Honestly, the bending we've seen Iroh do up until now is kind of underwhelming. Then again, he is probably being held down by the most powerful being of the Avatar live action. Money. Jokes aside, if we're looking at season 1 Iroh and compared to the original show, we find that Iroh didn't have that many impressive bending feats either. The animated show did however always succeed in giving you that feeling that there's more than meets the eye with Iroh. And to give credit where credit is due, I think the live action partially achieved the same effect. At least the amount of fire Iroh produced was quite impressive, especially when he tries to save Zuko and Omashu and he unleashes this giant plume of fire. Another move showing his prowess is found in his fight with the Earth Kingdom soldiers. Then again, he did do this weird powering up move before doing that, which made the attack kinda slow. Maybe they're trying to hint at Iroh having learned from the other bending disciplines here, but it really does reduce the threat that he poses. Finally, we see him unleashing his power tenfold after Xiao killed the Moon Spirit. Here he takes on several firebenders at once, which is indicative of his skill and power. All in all, they give us just enough of Iroh's bending to understand that this guy is no joke. But what we get is mostly hints of his abilities. So basically, I think we're going to see a lot more of Iroh in the next seasons. Let's hope Netflix allocates a part of the budget to our favorite uncle though. And we have already arrived at the Master tier. And the first character I'd say definitely belongs here is the second White Lotus member on this list, Master Pakku. So Master Pakku, unlike Saka, is still a sexist piece of shit. In the live action, they got rid of the whole betrothal necklace plotline, which to me was kind of a bummer as I always really liked the idea of Gran Gran moving to the south due to her rejection of the Northern Water Tribe's conservative policies. Now, the reason why Pakku allows Qara to fight boils down to, I guess we're most certainly going to die, so we probably need all the help we can get. Nevertheless, Pakku is still a beast. I especially like this snowstorm move he does. Similar to in the show, Pakku clearly shows to be a master in waterbending, using various moves with ease and precision, which we get to see in his fight against Qara. Admittedly, this fight was kind of underwhelming, which I think is not to do with Pakku per se, but more generally with waterbending. Throughout the live-action adaptation, waterbending feels significantly less threatening compared to the other bending disciplines. Even in the fight between Pakku and Qara, it resembles more of a graceful dance rather than a fast-paced fight scene. Now because of this, I had to place Qara and Pakku a bit lower than they are compared to their rankings in the animated series. Regardless, Pakku is definitely a master. The second character to enter the master tier is our favorite honorable fire prince, Zuko. First of all, I wanted to give props to Dallas Liu. I think he gave his all to this character, and I'm sure he'll only improve throughout the next 2 seasons. Compliments aside, Zuko's fighting prowess is incredible in this season. From the first scene he's in, his firebending is absolutely bonkers. Clearly, we start off with a much more powerful Zuko. Even Iroh's dialogue changes here, where in the animated show Iroh says to Zuko,
"You have yet to master your basics."
In the Netflix adaptation, he says this.
"Your skills have never been sharper."
In this iteration, Zuko showcases absolute mastery over numerous firebending moves, mostly favoring this overhead firebending kick, and of course his signature breakdancing move. Not only has he shown mastery over his firebending technique, he also displays extraordinary power. A good illustration of this is found in the second episode of the animated series. Here, Iroh had to join Zuko to create a fire blast powerful enough to reach Aang. In the Netflix series, however, he just does it by himself. And this level of firebending remains pretty consistent throughout the season. In fact, even in his fight with Ozai, which takes place roughly 2 years prior to the start of Season 1, Zuko actually holds his own against Ozai surprisingly well. Granted, one could argue that Ozai was holding back, but Zuko even gets a hit in, which is crazy. So yeah, Zuko received quite a power jump in this season compared to the animated series. His fight scenes are really fun too, and I'm eager to see where they'll take his skill level next. Just above Zuko is Ozai's preferred manipulated child, Azula. So the Netflix series decided to introduce Azula a season earlier than her introduction in the animated series. Of course, her premature introduction demanded the series to give her something to do, which they failed to execute properly. Yeah, she doesn't do much in this season. What they decided upon is to have her train the entire time at the Fire Nation capital. Meanwhile, she's portrayed as a master manipulator of both Zuko and Xiao, pulling all the strings, which really didn't make sense to me. The only thing we really see her do is her training. And of course her toxic relationship with Ozai, where she desperately seeks his approval while striving for more and more power. And it is in these scenes that we see glimpses of the powerhouse that she'll become in Season 2. In one of these fights we see a short burst of blue fire, hinting at her potential for her eventual signature blue flames. We also see her unlocking the ability to generate lightning. However, it is clear that she has yet to achieve this perfect mastery over her skills. Undoubtedly, she'll be a lot more powerful in the second and third season. In this season, however, she is a remarkably potent yet unrefined firebender. I'd give her the benefit of the doubt of besting Zuko in an Agni Kai because of her speed, acrobatics, and her lightning generation. The last character in the master tier is the Last Airbender, Aang. So Season 1 Aang's airbending abilities are adapted very well, as in his skill in the Netflix series is very comparable to the animated series. The only incomprehensible change they made was that Aang doesn't waterbend a single time during this season. Regardless, his bending scenes are very much some of the highlights of the fight scenes in this season for me. Of course, Aang is very powerful with just his airbending since he is the youngest master of his time. And they did an excellent job of accurately portraying him as the airbending master he is. We see a great balance between defensive evasive maneuvers that we know all too well, as well as some very offensive moves. I especially like this AoE air blast he does a few times, which takes out like 5 to 6 guys at the same time. And the craziest feat Aang does is in his fight against Boomi, where he for some reason is able to hold up these 2 giant boulders by himself, whilst the horribly written Boomi is going off about how bad friendship is. Not only is Aang's strength crazy, but he also seems to be able to fly now, which I don't know why they incorporated that, but yeah, it's just a thing he can do now, I guess. Nonetheless, Aang definitely deserves the master tier even with just his airbending. Of course, he'll only improve throughout the series, as we hopefully see him master the other elements, so he'll definitely move up the ranks. Oh, the legendary tier. I wonder if you guys already know who's going to be here, because we have 4 characters left. And the first legendary bender that we encounter is Fire Lord Sozin. In the animated series, we get very few bending scenes of Sozin. The ones that we do get are shown in Season 3 in the episode The Avatar and the Fire Lord. In this first season of the live action, they decided to dedicate the beginning of the first episode to the Fire Nation's attack on the Air Nomads. And it is here that we see Sozin's firebending prowess. Now granted, during this attack the firebenders were boosted by the comet. However, it seems like the comet doesn't boost firebenders as much in this series as it does in the animated one. Still, we have to take it into account when we judge Sozin's power. While he doesn't have that many bending scenes, we do see him absolutely demolishing one of the more proficient airbenders with this very powerful plume of fire. The second feat that we see him perform is of course one-on-one against Mongiatso, where he's able to destroy the most powerful airbender alive. And this feat is what made me put him in the legendary tier. Without the comet, Sozin also seems to be able to just incinerate people in an instant, which is an incredibly powerful skill to possess. Based on these feats, Sozin definitely deserves the first spot in the legendary tier. The second character to make it to the legendary tier is another White Lotus member, one whose portrayal I did not like, Boomi. And while the actor did a great job with Boomi's weirdness and his mannerisms, I think this performance was gravely undermined by the writing. Just like in the first season of the animated series, we got one fight scene showcasing Boomi's abilities, and they basically copied a lot of the moves from the original. Boomi's simply a very well-rounded master, having both impeccable technique as well as tremendous power. He's shown bending ginormous bodies of earth towards Aang, and he even does his quicksand move, which I always thought was really cool in the original series. And I'm at least happy that we got this whole "you can't trust your friends" character beat out of the way. And I hope that we get to see Boomi do a lot more in seasons 2 and 3 now that he's on the gang's side. If they show Boomi's escape from Omashu, I'm sure next time he'll be even higher on this list. Next up is personal friend of Avatar Roku and mentor of Aang, Mongiatso. As is the case with Sozin, we didn't see Gyatso airbend that much in the animated series. And when he did, it was not in a fight, he was just being a dick. However, with them showing the attack on the Air Nomads, we got to see how Gyatso and the other airbenders attempted to defend themselves from Sozin's ambush. And this fight, man, it's so incredible. I've seen many argue that we didn't really need to see the attack on the Air Nomads, as it doesn't really achieve much plot-wise, but man am I glad that they gave us this fight scene. It also provided us with 2 of the funniest line reads that to this day have filled me with a never-ending joy. First of all, at the very beginning there is this guy. Let's call him Owen. Now, Owen has just one line, but somehow he pulled it off to deliver the most legendary line read ever.
Brothers and
sisters, we're under attack!
Why is that just the funniest thing ever? And Owen is actually a beast too, taking out numerous combat boosted firebenders at the same time, only to be absolutely obliterated a few seconds after. Rest in peace, Owen. However, Owen is only surpassed by Gyatso himself, who in the midst of attack literally unleashes this nonsensical, hilarious scream. I swear it gets me every time. Anyway, when confronted with several Fire Nation soldiers, we see Gyatso perform this giant tornado attack, which just showcases his incredible power. Unfortunately, he got bested by Sozin. Now, the reason that Gyatso gains the edge on Sozin in this list is the combat boosting Sozin's power. Even Sozin says,
You may have prevailed on another night, but not when we have the power of the comet.
And I definitely argue that without the comet, Gyatso would have won that battle. Gyatso even holds Sozin off for a bit, which is really impressive. That's why all in all I'd say Gyatso belongs here in the legendary tier. The final, most powerful character of Season 1 is none other than Fire Lord Ozai. Similar to Azula, they decided to reveal Ozai in Season 1 rather than later on in the series. This provided us with insight into his decision making and his dynamic with Azula, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Additionally, it showcased Ozai's mastery of firebending, highlighting his incredible power and skill. And I think us seeing his bending prowess this early is actually a good thing, as it effectively builds anticipation for Aang's eventual battle with him in Season 3. The reason why Ozai is number 1 on this list is based on 2 scenes. First of all, he possesses this instant incineration ability that we saw Sozin do earlier. However, he seems to have developed it to a much greater extent, burning his victims even faster and being able to perform it simultaneously on like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. Such an ability is very overpowered. Secondly, they changed Zuko's Agni Kai with Ozai into an actual fight. Whereas in the original series, Ozai didn't even engage in combat, he simply burned Zuko, highlighting his sheer brutality. And yeah, I didn't like this. I think it really undermines the gravity of this event, which is meant to serve as the foundation for Zuko's desire to capture the Avatar. In any case, this fight is really cool, and it definitely showcases Ozai's power. Ozai's firebending is shown to be incredibly precise, lightning fast, and immensely powerful, all the while probably even holding back. Not only has he absolutely perfected firebending, he also demonstrates mastery over hand-to-hand combat. We see a bender that is just in complete control during a fight, despite Zuko's considerable power as well. Based on these 2 scenes, I'm quite convinced Ozai would win against all the other benders on this list. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. So that was it. If you're thinking, where are the past avatars? Well, Roku and Karuk did not bend during this season, and while Avatar Kyoshi had several fight scenes, she was in the avatar state each time. So based on this, I can't rank them, but I'll give them an honorable mention. Anyway, what did you think of the list? Who would you put higher? Who would you put lower? And who did I get just right? Let me know in the comments so the algorithm is kind to me. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.